Don't look her in the eyes, my father whispered, his breath trembling just beneath the hiss of the kettle. I blinked. What? He didn't answer. Just handed me a cup of tea with shaking hands, eyes fixed on the window. She knows you found out about the inheritance. The cup trembled slightly in my hand, or maybe that was me. It was the first time I had been home in 2 years. The same gray stone house where I'd grown up, the same oak door with the sticky lock, the same faded family portrait still hanging by the staircase, as if time had stopped the moment I left. But it hadn't. It twisted, hardened, hollowed. She invited me, I said. She told me she missed me. He looked at me then, fully, for the first time since I'd arrived. Of course she did. She wants to see your face. She wants to know how much you know. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my father never used to talk like this. Not in riddles, not in warnings. He was the practical one. The stable one. The one who made lists and overwatered plants. But today he looked like someone who had been carrying a secret for far too long, and it had started rotting from the inside. I didn't come to fight, I said. It's her birthday. I just want to be civil. He gave a slow, joyless nod. Then don't look her in the eyes. That's where she keeps the trap. I didn't ask what that meant. It had started, really, with a phone call 2 weeks ago. Mom, cheerful, overly warm. Darling, you have to come. I'm turning 65. We're having a little dinner. Just family. Just family. 2 words that didn't mean what they used to. But I said yes. Because something in her voice had sounded off, too rehearsed, too careful. And because the email I'd received 3 days before that call wasn't from her. It had been from a woman named Elise. I worked with your grandmother. Please, whatever they tell you, do not sign anything. Attached was a scan of a document. A signature line. My name already printed. I hadn't replied. I hadn't told anyone. Except Dad. When the front door creaked open that evening and I saw her silhouette at the end of the hallway, smiling, arms open, I thought of all the times I'd run into that embrace as a child. Before the silence. Before the coldness that had crept into everything like mold. She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was stronger than I remembered. You look so grown up, she said. London suits you. I smiled. Not with my eyes. Come. Everyone's waiting. As I stepped into the dining room, the lights felt too bright, the walls too close. My sister waved from across the table. Her husband barely looked up. The air felt curated, like I was walking onto a set. Mom sat at the head of the table. She raised her glass. To family, finally together again. The toast echoed. Everyone drank. Everyone but me. Because the glass I was handed was already half empty. And I couldn't remember who poured it. The glass was already half empty when it reached me. I held it without drinking. My mother's eyes flicked to mine for a fraction of a second, and then to the glass, as if checking something. She smiled too fast. Still not a fan of red? I gave a polite nod. Still gives me headaches. She laughed. Oh, darling, everything gives you headaches. Across the table, my sister cleared her throat. Tell us about your work, she said too brightly. Still consulting for tech people? Legal architecture, I corrected softly. Contracts. Risk. Her husband muttered, sounds thrilling, and kept cutting his meat. Mom didn't ask anything else. She just passed the bread with a distracted hand, already mid-conversation with no one in particular. It was like I wasn't here. But I was, and not by accident. After dessert, a too-sweet lemon tart with a crust that tasted like nostalgia, Mom excused herself, saying she had something to show me. Just a small thing, she said, already leading me upstairs. The hallway was dim, lined with old framed portraits. But there was one door that had always remained locked. As children, my sister and I used to whisper about it. The blue room. I once asked Mom what was behind it. Just storage, she said, too quickly. That night, she opened it without a word. The room was clean. Airless. No dust, no clutter. Everything inside was perfectly arranged: 2 chairs, a writing desk, a single lamp. But no photos. Not on the walls. Not in the drawers. Nothing that belonged to a person, past or present. She sat down in one of the chairs and gestured for me to take the other. I did. Then she looked at me, really looked, and her voice softened. Do you remember your grandmother's hands? I blinked. Her hands? She had strong fingers, Mom said, almost dreamily. Even when she was ill, she could crush a walnut with her palm. I nodded slowly, unsure what this had to do with anything. She never let go of things, Mom added. Not debts. Not secrets. There it was. The shift. I waited. After she passed, Mom said, your name came up. In a few documents. You know how estate matters go, messy, confusing. I leaned back slightly. So confusing someone tried to forge my signature? Her smile froze. Then returned, smaller, tighter. We're family, she said. We don't sue family. Back downstairs, the air felt heavier. My father sat alone in the living room, thumbing through an old photo album. When I passed behind him, he murmured without looking up. She didn't take you in there, did she? I stopped. She did. He closed the book. That room was your grandmother's office. Before it was scrubbed clean. I sat down across from him. There's nothing in there. He met my eyes. Exactly. Upstairs, I heard my mother's voice through the floorboards, talking to someone on the phone. Her tone was clipped, urgent. I told you. She's here. No, not yet, but soon. I stood. And for the first time that night, I truly wanted to leave. But then I heard her say my name not once, but twice. And then, she doesn't remember the envelope. Thank God. I didn't mean to listen. I hadn't planned to stand under the vent near the stairwell, barely breathing, hoping to catch every syllable. But once you hear your name in that tone, the kind people use when they think you're a problem, not a person, you stay still. She doesn't remember the envelope, Mom said again. A pause. Then, if she brings it up, steer the conversation. Don't let her hold on to it. No, destroy it if you have to. Destroy what? I stepped back from the vent like it had burned me. I wanted to believe I misunderstood, that the phone call was about something else entirely. But I knew better. This wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. When I was 10, I found a letter in the attic wedged behind a loose panel. I couldn't read most of it, cursive too wild, words too grown up, but I recognized names. My grandmother's. My mother's. Mine. I remember bringing it down to the kitchen, so proud of my discovery. My mom snatched it from my hands with a smile so tight it looked like pain. Not everything old is worth keeping, she said. I never saw it again. But that night, lying in bed with the sound of her voice still echoing in my skull, I realized something. That letter might not have been the only thing I wasn't meant to find. The next morning, I woke early. The house was silent, still wrapped in that early morning hush, when everything feels honest and nothing has had time to pretend yet. Dad was already in the garden, clipping dead rose heads into a metal pail. He didn't look surprised to see me. She called someone last night, I said. He didn't pause. Just kept clipping. She always does, when she's nervous. What's the envelope? His hand froze midair. I stepped closer. You told me never to sign anything. You said she'd try something if I came back. So tell me, what's in that envelope? He lowered the shears. It's not what's in it, he said. It's what it proves. After breakfast, I walked the hall again, not aimlessly this time. I was searching. Drawers, cabinets, the old armoire in the guest room. I opened a sewing box and found a tangle of needles and faded buttons. I opened a photo album and found a page ripped neatly out. I opened a jewelry drawer and found nothing. Everything was curated, edited, controlled. Except one thing. Behind the linen closet, where towels had always been stacked with obsessive precision, a thin crack in the wall caught my eye. The panel shifted when I pressed it. Inside was a narrow cavity, barely wide enough to slip my arm in. My hand brushed something dry and papery. When I pulled it out, I saw the envelope. No name, no address. Just 2 letters, printed neatly in black ink, R.E. My initials. I didn't open it. Not right away. Because my hands were shaking, and part of me was scared that opening it would make something irreversible. Instead, I tucked it into the inside of my coat and left the closet just as I found it. I returned downstairs. Mom was pouring tea. She turned when she saw me, smile already loaded in place. Did you sleep okay, sweetheart? I smiled back. Like a rock. I didn't open the envelope until nightfall. I waited until the house was quiet again, until the echoes of dinner conversation had faded into the background hum of clinking plates and murmured excuses. Mom had gone to her room early. Dad, as usual, vanished into the garage. Only my sister remained downstairs, curled on the couch, scrolling through her phone like the world outside the screen didn't matter. She looked up when I entered. "You okay?" I nodded. "Just tired." She watched me a second too long. "You always were tired, weren't you?" I sat in the chair across from her. "Do you remember the envelope? The one Mom took from me when we were kids." She blinked. "What envelope?" But I saw it, the flicker. Not in her eyes, but in the way she adjusted her legs, suddenly restless. "You remember," I said. "Don't lie." Her voice dropped a register. "You shouldn't go looking for things you were never supposed to find." Back upstairs, I locked my door and pulled the envelope from the inside lining of my coat. It felt old, brittle at the corners, soft where it had been held too many times. I slit the top carefully, not breathing, and pulled out a folded page and a single photograph. The letter was typed. No greeting. No signature. "To whoever finds this, they will not tell you the truth. The will is not valid. The second version, the one with her seal, was coerced. If you have this, it means I failed to stop them." Beneath the letter was a name. Someone I'd never heard of. And a date 2 years before my grandmother died. I picked up the photo next. Black and white. Faded. A child on a porch, maybe 4 or 5, holding a stuffed rabbit. My heart dropped. It was me. But the house wasn't ours. The next morning, I confronted Dad. "Why would someone forge Grandma's will?" I asked. He closed his eyes. "You opened it." "I had to. Someone warned me. I need to know." He hesitated for a long time. Then he said, "The house wasn't supposed to go to her." I blinked. "To who then?" "To you." I stared at him. "That's impossible." He didn't flinch. "She changed it. At the last moment. But it wasn't her decision. She wasn't herself anymore." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, a voice behind me, cold and deliberate. She was lucid enough when I was with her. We both turned. My mother stood in the doorway. Hair done. Lipstick perfect. As if she'd been waiting for this moment. She was lucid enough when I was with her. My mother's voice didn't waver. Not once. It was the kind of voice people trust, calm, measured, feminine in that efficient, magazine spread way. But I wasn't looking at her voice. I was watching her hands. Because they were too still. And when my mother's hands are still, it means she's controlling the story. Dad took a step back, his shoulders collapsing in on themselves like a man who'd lost the right to speak. Mom stepped further into the room, closing the door gently behind her. "I always wondered when you'd find that envelope," she said. "She was careful, your grandmother. Too careful, some might say." I swallowed. "It says the will was forged." Her smile didn't move. "Do you even know what forged means, darling? You've spent too much time abroad. It also says the second version wasn't her real choice." "That's rich," she snapped, and there it was, a crack. Not wide, but real. I pressed further. "Was it you? Did you force her to sign it?" She crossed her arms. She made a decision. A logical one. "For you to get the house instead of me?" Her eyes narrowed. "Do you really think a woman like her would leave everything to a granddaughter who ran away to consult and only came back when it was convenient?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because the house wasn't the point anymore. The lie was. That afternoon, I took a walk to the edge of the property. The weather had shifted, wind sharp, air thick with coming rain. Behind the garden, near the rusted tool shed, was the stone bench Grandma used to sit on with her tea. I hadn't been there in years. But something about that spot always felt different, quieter than the rest of the yard. Removed. And underneath it, wedged between 2 bricks, I found something new. A small metal tin. Taped shut. No label. Inside, a single photograph. This one wasn't of me. It was of her. My mother. Much younger. Standing outside a courthouse. With a man I didn't recognize. Both smiling. On the back, in handwriting that didn't belong to either of them. The day she took it all. When I got back inside, my sister was waiting in the hallway. "You're making things worse," she said, arms crossed, voice trembling just slightly. "For who?" I asked. "For all of us." I held out the photo. "Who is he?" She looked, then flinched. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." "No, I don't," she said, stepping back. "And if you're smart, you'll stop asking. Some things don't want to be remembered." I stared at her. "That's not how memory works." She shook her head. "It is in this family." That night, I left the envelope in the open on the dining table to see who would touch it. At 3:12 a.m., I heard footsteps. Soft, unhurried. Then the creak of the chair. The whisper of paper sliding across wood. And finally, the sound of it tearing in two. By the time I reached the dining room, the envelope was gone. Not torn. Not crumpled. Gone as if it had never existed. I checked the trash. Nothing. Checked the fireplace. Cold ashes. No new burn. But the chair. It was still pulled out. Just slightly. Like someone had sat, thought twice, then erased their own presence. I stood there, arms folded, heart thudding not with fear, but with certainty. Someone in this house was very, very afraid of what I might remember. The next morning I waited. At breakfast, Mom was humming. Dad didn't meet my eyes. My sister never came downstairs. I let the silence do the asking. I didn't mention the envelope. Not the letter. Not the photo. And still, the mood had shifted. Like everyone had agreed, separately, silently, that something dangerous had nearly been exposed. Around noon, I found Dad in the garage again, fixing something that didn't need fixing. He didn't look up when I entered. "She did it, didn't she?" I said. He didn't ask what I meant. He just sighed. I told her to leave it alone. That it wasn't worth it. But she didn't listen. She never does. He wiped his hands on a rag, then leaned back against the workbench. "She hated being second choice," he said, so softly I almost missed it. I frowned. "Second to who?" He hesitated. "Your grandmother loved you, you know that?" I waited. He didn't finish the sentence. That evening, I slipped into Mom's study while she was outside taking a call. The same study that used to be off limits. The same one she claimed she never used anymore. Her desk drawers were locked, but the cabinet wasn't. Inside, a stack of paperwork neatly filed. Bank statements. Legal notices. Travel receipts. One folder was labeled simply R.E. My initials again. I opened it. What I found weren't letters. They were reports. Surveillance, almost. Notes on my movements, cities I'd worked in, hotels I'd stayed at. Flight confirmations. Restaurant receipts. Emails printed out, some of which I didn't remember sending. But one stood out. A letter I had written 3 years ago, after Grandma's death. To my mother. "I don't want anything from the estate. Just answers. If there's something I should know, tell me now." I never received a reply. Yet here it was, underlined, annotated, date-stamped. Someone had read it more than once. And someone had decided that silence was the safest answer. That night, I dreamed of the house with no photos. Of my grandmother's voice, whispering something I couldn't hear. Of my mother, standing just outside a locked door, holding a key and smiling too wide. When I woke, I was holding the tin from the garden bench. Still closed. But inside it, I now knew, was something else. Another photo. One I hadn't seen. Yet. The photo from the tin had a crease across the middle, as if someone had folded it once, sharply, and then regretted it. It was taken on the same day as the other. Same courthouse steps. Same floral dress on my mother. Same smile. But this time, she wasn't alone. He was holding her hand. The man from the first photo. Dark suit. Confident stance. The kind of face you forget until you realize you've seen it more than once, in old albums, background corners, and now, in my own reflection. Because the resemblance was too close. Too deliberate. I flipped the photo over. 2 words written in the same cramped script. "Your father." I sat on the edge of the bed, lungs refusing to fill. I heard Dad's voice downstairs, joking with the mailman. Calm. Familiar. Was it possible? No. It had to be a lie. Had to be one of Grandma's manipulations. She was sharp, sure, but she had her moments of cruelty. And yet, why else hide the photos? Why else watch my life from a distance, airport to airport, city to city? Why else try so hard to make me forget? I confronted her after dinner. We were alone in the kitchen. She was rinsing dishes like nothing had happened, as if we were still a family built on Sunday routines and matching silverware. I placed the photo on the counter. She didn't look surprised. "So you found it," she said softly. "I want to know." "You already do." I stepped closer. Why hide him from me? Her hands stilled. Water ran over porcelain. "Because he didn't want you," she said. "Because he left before you were born and never looked back." I blinked. "And Dad?" She turned finally. Her eyes were dry, unreadable. "He knew. We agreed it would be better this way. Safer." Safer from what? Her lips tightened. From her. From the way she used people like pawns in a game she never stopped playing. "You mean Grandma? She wanted you raised by someone she could control. Not him. Not the one who almost ruined her." She paused, then added, almost to herself, "But I think she changed her mind in the end." I sat on the porch that night, holding the torn envelope, now taped back together with trembling hands. I watched the house through the reflection in the glass door. Every window looked like an eye. Every room a mouth full of secrets. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. But I knew one thing for certain. If my grandmother had changed her mind before she died, if she'd tried to make things right, then someone had made sure no one would ever find out. And that meant she hadn't died quietly. I found the hospice nurse's name in a folder my mother had forgotten to lock. Or maybe she'd stopped trying. Maybe she knew the ending had already begun, and there was no stopping the unraveling now. Her name was Maribel. A quiet woman with warm eyes and a pause between words like she was measuring what to leave unsaid. I called her. "I'm sorry to disturb. You're her granddaughter," she interrupted gently. I froze. "She used to talk about you. Late at night, when she thought no one was listening." We met the next day, in a cafe halfway between my childhood and everything I'd built to escape it. Maribel stirred her tea slowly. "She wasn't what people think." "I know," I said. "She was cruel. Controlling." She looked up. "No. I mean, yes, she could be sharp. But at the end, she was trying." "Trying what?" "To undo what she'd done." She reached into her bag and handed me a small velvet pouch. "She asked me to give this to you if anyone ever came looking." Inside, a key. Old. Ornate. Heavy. "Safe deposit box," she explained. She didn't trust lawyers. She said the paperwork had already been sanitized. The bank was downtown, a cold vault of silence and steel. It took 2 forms of ID and 3 signatures to access the box. Inside, 1 folder, 1 audio cassette, and a folded letter addressed simply, "To the girl who saw too much." I read the letter in the car. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't even kind. But it was honest. She admitted to forcing my mother's hand, to manipulating the first version of the will, to threatening my real father, not for leaving, but for trying to come back. "He was dangerous in the way charm is dangerous," she wrote. "And your mother was vulnerable to anyone who told her she was better than she felt." But then she said something else. Something I hadn't expected. "You were never meant to inherit this house. You were meant to escape it." The audio cassette was harder to listen to. Her voice, once commanding, had grown thin. She talked about regrets. About watching her daughters tear each other apart for a roof and a name and a legacy soaked in control. She talked about the day she'd tried to make things right, rewriting the will with a friend at her side, outside the family. A lawyer no one knew. She never got to file it. Because the next morning, she slipped. Or so they said. I drove back to the house in silence, the cassette still spinning in the deck, her voice a ghost between static. When I arrived, the front door was open. And my sister was standing in the hallway, tears on her cheeks. "She knows you have it," she whispered. "Mom, she's not going to let this go." My sister stood there like a child who'd just broken something she couldn't name. I stepped past her and closed the door behind me. "Where is she?" I asked. "In the study," she said. She locked the drawer. Of course she did. Mom didn't look up when I entered. She was sitting at her desk, fingers folded, gaze fixed on the wall like there was something written there only she could read. "You listened to it," she said. "Yes. She told you everything." I didn't answer. She finally turned to face me. "And what now? You think you're the hero." I crossed the room slowly, placed the letter on her desk. She didn't want me to have the house. She wanted me to leave it. She wanted to rewrite everything because she was afraid of being forgotten. My mother snapped. She needed a redemption arc. She needed you to believe she cared. She did care. She controlled. "So do you." Silence stretched between us, heavy as stone. Then Mom whispered, "You were always going to leave anyway." I left the house before dawn. No suitcase. No fanfare. Just the tin, the photo, and the cassette in my coat pocket. Dad didn't try to stop me. My sister stood on the porch, barefoot, watching me like she wanted to ask something, but didn't know how. I turned to her once before getting in the car. "You knew, didn't you?" She nodded slowly. "I just didn't know what to do with it." "Neither do I said. "But I think we still have time. To fix it. To stop repeating it." The house didn't burn. The will wasn't changed. The secrets, some of them, stayed buried. But I made copies. I sent one to the lawyer. The real one. I mailed another to myself, unopened, just to know that someday, if I ever forget, I left a trail behind me. A map. Out of silence. Out of stories written by others. And back toward the truth, or at least my version of it. I live in a new city now. The sun is warmer. The windows don't whisper. And the house I wake up in has no ghosts yet. But I still keep the key. Not because I want to go back. But because I know someday someone else might need it. Someone who sees too much and refuses to stop looking.